Welcome to the latest edition of the Giants Hangout, our weekly roundtable discussion as we recap the latest game, also look ahead. Lance Meadow, Russ Salzberg, Howard Cross with you. A heartbreaking loss for the Giants in Week 8 as they folded the Jets in overtime, 13-10. Plenty of takeaways from this game. So we're going to hit on three major themes: the defensive performance on the final two drives. We're going to get into the offensive philosophy overall in the wake of Tyrod Taylor's injury, and then some missed opportunities on special teams that perhaps could have at least cushioned the lead. So I want to start, Howard, on the defensive side of the ball, because overall, if you look at this game, a solid defensive performance. I mean, they kept that Jets offense in check. I don't think anybody's going to dispute that. But you know, in football, from being a former player, you can play great for 59 minutes and 30 seconds, and who knows what's going to happen in the final 30 seconds. And that's what I really want to focus on, because the Jets offense, they had 1 third down conversion going into those final two drives. They had not been able to move the chains, and they get their two longest pass plays for Garrett Wilson and Alan Lazard, Howard, on the last possession in regulation to ultimately force overtime. And the Kayvon Thibodeau penalty was huge because it stopped the clock after the reception. So what I'm talking about is the little things, the nuances of the game, unfortunately added up, and it went against the Giants' defense with the game on the line.
Actually, if you want to go nuances, one of the nuances in the game that probably would have ended the game in regulation that no one's talking about is the referee spotting the ball. The referee went up after the kid got up. They kind of separated. He didn't check the line. He didn't do anything. He put the ball down and ran out of the way.
He tapped it, though, Howard. He tapped the ball. And
No,
that's
he
allowed.
put the ball down and he ran out of the way. That's never you don't see that in any games. If he spots the ball, if he looks and then actually spots the ball, then that's it. The player usually has to hand the ball to the ref. He just and moved. That gave them a chance to win the game. That's one. The other thing that gave them a chance to win the game after the tackle, they just popped up out of the air, like they were trying to spot the ball themselves, the defense. Take your time getting up. That stops the game too. The things you're talking about after the Giants go down and don't kick or miss the field goal, which almost got blocked, it is like they had to make a play eventually. You just run around, somebody will get open. Just run. Just don't even try to run a play. Just start scrambling to one side or the other. Run as far as you can. Don't take a sack, but somebody's going to get open. They just ran scramble rules for the rest of the game. It became backyard football after that. That's hard to like cover or get to. If you don't get to him instantly, and he just runs around in circles and buys time, somebody's going to get open. You can't cover for more than 3 or 4 seconds. That's not
And
a breakdown.
yeah.
That's just a game.
Well, and Zach Wilson's legs did make a difference, to your point, on that drive. And Russ, I would just add to the fact that all relevant points that Howard was talking about, but, regardless of how challenging the quarterback presents, I'm looking at the whole piece of the pie here where the Giants defense had been on point for the entire game. And Wink Martindale's scheme was really flustering them. And all of a sudden, in the final 30 seconds, Zach Wilson makes his two best throws of the game, which were nowhere to be found earlier in the contest.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I would agree with that. You have to, let's remember one thing. You could talk about this game being a defensive game. It was certainly one of the ugliest games I've ever seen or been to. But that said, remember the Giants defense. I mean, it was just left up to them. I mean, they knew their offense was not going to do anything. They knew it. It was Saquon was going to run the ball. The defense had to keep the Jets stymied, and they did. Now, the last two plays, yeah, I mean, to me, it was a head scratcher. We've seen crazy plays before, but back-to-back 29-yard completions, from Zach Wilson. I mean, he threw for 240 yards in the game. 50 of those came on a flip pass to Breece Hall, and then you had another 58 right there. So the Giants defense did it to the end. And I guess part of the discussion, I know a lot of the driving home, I'm hearing the debating in the car, on the radio. I'm hearing it. I'm reading about it. Should they have gone on 4th and 1? Should they have gone for the first down, or should they have gone for the field goal? Well, to me, I could say it's a coin flip. I could go either way. But the reason you went for the field goal is for the very reason what ended up happening in regulation. If he makes the field goal, it's a moot point. 2 back-to-back bombs is not going to do it. It would have just put them in field goal position. Mm-hmm. So, to me, that point is, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. The defense was having a spectacular game, and call it lapsed, whatever. They got beat on those 2 plays, and, everybody's miserable this morning.
Well, if it were me and I were calling the game, I would have never tried to kick the field goal, and I would have just said, like, I'm going to run the ball into the middle or try to run it around the edge to eat up some time on the clock, knowing that we're not going to score, right, and take a few more seconds off the clock, and then tell the defense, we're going to run the ball here, and you're going to go in and stop them, and that's how I would have left it. Kicking it for the field goal, and because we got one of the best kickers in the league, even though he's been struggling. The problem with kicking the field goal is that I look back to the Dallas game and them jumping over the protection and blocking it for a return, and I was like, man, that is just, I don't understand what's going on. And with all new linemen, guys coming in from practice squads and off other teams, and you're trying to get them in there for a big moment like that, they're doing the best they can. I wouldn't have trusted them in that situation because it didn't make sense to me to try to trust them on something so big.
Well, you know what, Howard, you make a great point there. Just the flip side of that, and I was going over my notes. I was sitting up in the press box yesterday, and I'm logging the game as it's going on, and I stopped after a while, but there were 5. And listen, Saquon was marvelous yesterday, but there were 5 carries by Saquon. 1 was for no gain, and 4 were for negative yards. Now, I'm not saying that was going to happen, but that also can go into thinking what happened.
But the theory, Russ, is not positive play time.
Okay. Yeah, I'll buy that.
The clock's going to stop anyway, right? But it's not going to. You kick the ball, it's over. Like over. If you just kind of make a pitch for him to run to the sideline like he's going to run out of bounds and he slides down, that could take 3 seconds off the clock. 3 or 4 seconds off the clock makes a big difference. And the kick moves the ball further down the field. If you don't get it, it's 6-7 yards the kick. So my philosophy would have been, all right, I'd have just turned to my defense and told them, okay, look, you've been stopping them all day. Let's go get him. You're going to win the game for us. And that's what I would have leaned on. And if it didn't work, it didn't work. But that's what I would have leaned on.
Well, but then at the same point, okay, so they missed the field goal. The logic is still the same. Okay, defense, you got to stop them. Instead, it was 2 29-yard completions.
I think that everybody thought the game was going to be over because they thought Gano was going to win. And then they go out there, they got to change their mind really quickly and get ready to go.
That I agree with. I think when they came out, their head was spinning like, what did just happen? Did this really just happen? That I believe. They're like, what? If they could have taken off the helmets, they all would have been scratching their heads as we were in the press box. You're right about that.
Yeah, because you're sitting there.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, let's go. Like, don't put hope. Like, this is your game. You're going to win this game. You've done everything. You're going to have to do it one more time. I'd have been talking to them the entire time. They thought they were going to make it. Everyone on the sideline probably thought they were going to make it. And when they didn't make it, they have to readjust really quickly and try to get themselves ready to go. It's a hard thing to do, but you got to be able to do it.
Well, and that's why after the game, Kayvon Thibodeau, the term he utilized was you got to be able to finish. And I know it sounds cliche, but I mean, that's essentially what didn't happen. They played well, once again, for 59 minutes and 30 seconds, that defense. But unfortunately, the final 30 seconds, and I'm estimating here, you opened the door to allow the Jets to get in. Because to Russ's point,
24 seconds.
Once again, you want to be technical, that's fine. And every little second adds up, that's fine. Yeah. I was just, once again, bottling it up into an estimation. But to bring Russ's point back into the equation, Brian Dable's philosophy was, even if Graham Gano misses the field goal, I'm going to hang my hat on the defense making a stop because they've been so reliable up to that point. And it's hard to question that because of how good they played. But I think to your point, Howard, is if you take a few extra seconds off the clock via a run play, or now all of a sudden the Jets don't take over from the spot of where the miss was, maybe they don't get to the line of scrimmage to be able to spike the ball, and they can't take a shot into the end zone. Because what people don't want to talk about is, remember, if the Jets snap the ball there and they spike it, they still have an opportunity to maybe throw into the end zone if they need a touchdown to win the game. The game is not over in this hypothetical world, but the clock aspect maybe prevents them from even taking a shot into the end zone.
So,
And I think
like I
that's
said,
where you're coming from.
if you run, like I said, if it were me, I would have hyped the defense up on the sideline. Like, we're going to run this ball. We know we're not going to get in. We're going to try to get some time off the clock. You're going to have less than 24 seconds to stop them. Go out there and stop them. I would have been livid on the sidelines in that aspect. To kick it and give them any extra yards going forward to give, like, you're watching the kick, you're like, all right, we're gonna have to try to get them now. If we miss the kick, you can't say they're on the sideline because your kicker's standing there.
Sure.
Like,
Well, you want to exude
you can't put
confidence.
that
I
into the
understand.
universe. You can't put that into the universe of the kicker. Like, hey,
Yeah.
if Gano misses this, we're gonna go back out there and take because Gano is standing there waiting to go in.
You know what this game actually reminded me of? I don't know if you guys noticed earlier this season in college, Miami played Georgia Tech, and Mario Cristobal and his staff did not take a knee, if you
Yeah.
remember. And the Miami running back, okay, right, fumbles the ball. Georgia Tech takes over. And there's about the same amount of time, actually, that was left in regulation for the Giants and the
Exactly
Jets. And
same.
Georgia Tech goes 74 yards. The
Scores
guy gets
touchdown.
behind the defense, scores the touchdown, and the rest is history. Now, at the time, I made the argument, and I know Howard's going to be against this, so I'm just prefacing my comments, that as bad as those dynamics were in play in terms of the offensive philosophy, that your defense has to just prevent the opposition from going 74 yards in 2 plays to score a go-ahead touchdown. So while I understand special teams had an opportunity to maybe at least close the door for the majority of the way, I still put some of the onus, Russ, on the defense, as good as that unit played throughout the course of the game.
Well, I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, if you heard you yourself said it. What Kayvon said, you got to be able to finish. Listen, they played great for 59 minutes and 30 seconds, whatever the heck, 36 seconds, whatever the heck it was. Yeah, there were 2 29-yard completions. No one's going to dispute that. Certainly not the defense. But listen, guys, I think we'd also be remiss if we don't bring up we had a third string quarterback in there. Now, you, myself, you guys saw Tommy DeVito play in preseason. He was able to throw the ball in preseason. I guess I'll defer to you on this one, Howard, because you played the game. You're a third string quarterback. You're a backup. You're a practice quarterback for a reason. But was it just not a case? Is preseason just different because they didn't want him throwing the ball at all? I mean, at all. They like Dave said at halftime, he told the guys, we're going through number 26. Now, was it the weather? Was it a combination of everything, or just everybody being spooked? Everybody.
They gave him a couple shots to throw the ball early. They gave him what you would call warm-up throws, like little flat throws. One he threw over the guy's head out of bounds. One he threw in the dirt. And at that moment, the coach had to make a decision. Are we going to trust him and throw it forward? Even at the end of the game, when they tried to throw the screen, he threw the ball into the defensive player's hands, and the guy just dropped it.
Right.
So I don't know if you can just take that as evidence. His coach had his finger on the pulse of what was going on. He had his finger on the pulse of what's going on. Like you got Tyrod who's scrambling and he's risk adverse. He's not going to throw the interception. That's why he got hit on the sideline. And you got another kid coming in. Are you going to ask him to play the same role as Tyrod, or are you going to say just chunk it down the field, try it?
Howard, you were standing on a sideline. You mentioned Tyrod, and let's hope to God he's okay. But talking about Tyrod, it looked to me, and a couple of us were talking about it. It looked to me that early on in the game, he was a little jittery. When I say jittery, he was looking to run out of the pocket right away, as opposed to maybe taking an extra second to find the receiver. Now, I don't know what it's looking like down on the field, but from where I was watching up in the press box, it looked to me, as I say, just he had quick feet.
In all fairness to Tyrod, he pulled the ball down quick. He had some time on some plays. I know he got sacked a couple times, but he had a lot of time on some plays to actually go through progression and look. And he was watching the rush more than he was watching downfield. And if he saw any color coming free, He was like, I gotta make sure that it was more. It looked like he was going out. I need to make sure I can escape more so than I need to see who's open. And the escape thing started to bother him a little bit earlier. I think the Waller going out of the game early got into his head also because that's the safety net to throw the ball underneath a lot. And we only had one other tight end active, and Bellinger, and he was trying to chip to get off. Uh, so I don't understand the philosophy of how he plays quarterback, but I know that there were opportunities for him to like step back. Let's take a look. He might hit the check down. He might have been able to hit somebody coming underneath, but he was out after he hit his third step. I don't even know if he took a look down the field sometimes. So I don't know. Again, is it just him saying I'm going to use my legs, keep it safe? I'm not going to risk it in the rain because he did try to roll out one time and throw the ball, and the ball slipped out of his hands. So I don't know.
Well, that was the play he got hurt on.
That was the play he got hurt on. Yeah.
So,
that was the play he got hurt on. Yeah.
So
no.
I don't know. I don't pretend to know how hard it is to throw the ball in the rain because it's definitely harder to throw it and hold on to. So he was making decisions what he thought he should be doing.
Well, and I think that goes back to the question that Russ posed with respect to the philosophy once DeVito comes in. I think there were a lot of influences. I think number one was what happened with the weather when Tyrod was in, as Howard was just talking about. And now you have a far more inexperienced quarterback in not ideal conditions. And I think, as Brian Dable admitted after the game, they were not hiding the fact that this was a very, very conservative game plan. And it seemed as if we're going to win this game by committing less mistakes than the Jets. And as long as we don't put the ball in harm's way and keep moving the chains and milk the clock and rely on our defense, we'll be able to do that. And once again, for 59 minutes and 30 seconds, it seemed to be effective. And if the Giants hold on to win, perhaps the conversation is very different about the coaching staff approach. It changes because, of course, what happened in those final 30 seconds. Now, do you want to see your quarterback try to keep the Jets defense off guard a little bit? I think anybody would say yes, because, let's face it, guys, the Jets defense knew what was coming on every single play. And the Giants, they still, to their credit, ran the ball effectively with Saquon. But could you maybe catch them off guard here or there on a short pass and maybe set up a more manageable third down?
So when I know you keep saying that, but you're excluding the evidence that they gave you. They tried to throw the ball with him in the game a couple times to the side. He threw it over the guy's head, and then he threw one in the mud. So coaches looking at it and going like,
"Oh, absolutely, yeah."
So in your view, try and throw it, right? So they tried. They tried to, these are what they call warm-up throws. These are confidence builders. Let me give you a little confidence builder to get you kind of in the flow of the game. I know it's a big game. We're not going to ask you to throw it down the field. We're just going to ask you to dump it over here. Dump it. He threw one to Saquon that was behind him. It looked like it was going to be a halfback pass. Saquon had to go behind him to catch the ball, to catch it, because if he didn't catch it, it would have been basically a fumble. And now that's when you're seeing that doesn't give you any kind of indication you want to throw the ball forward down the field.
Well, that also brings us, to the question, and a lot of people are wondering, if you're not going to have faith in the guy throwing the ball, then why is he in the position he's in the first place? Whether he's a practice squad player or not.
No offense on that one, but most third string quarterbacks never see the field, ever. And you have him in as a developmental player. You think you're going to develop him into potentially he could be a useful backup someday. Probably he's a local kid. Also, they never intended when Danny got hurt. They probably been on the phones calling people trying to figure out, okay, can we get somebody in here in the meantime to help back up Tyrod? And they're like, we can go with DeVito right now because I don't think Tyrod's gonna get hurt. And the offensive line did start playing better. Right? Better. They played better against worse defenses or defenses that weren't playing as well. So that kind of gave them a little confidence. I'm sure they were on the phone, though, looking for somebody to come in. All of a sudden, one more week, if we can get through this week, we'll see where Danny is. We'll see where Tyrod is. We'll see, he's a placeholder. All of a sudden, he has to play.
Well, you know what? For both guys, for both of you guys, in light of the situation that they're in right now, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm not a doctor. I would bet, and listen, unless he gets medical clearance, he's not going to play. But I would bet as we speak, Daniel Jones is campaigning right now to play in the upcoming game against the Raiders. Now, again, if he doesn't get
he's been campaigning the whole
right,
time.
you're right. No,
And,
but now there's a greater sense of urgency because Tyrod's not going to be in there.
There's no greater sense of urgency. It's still his neck.
Yeah, right. I mean, they still need to look out for the well-being of Daniel Jones.
Oh, 100%. If like as I say, if he doesn't get medical clearance, but it's listen. Look, had they won the game, you, me, all of us, and everybody out there would be saying tough, gritty, gutty performance by the Giants. With the backup quarterback, they took care of business. But they didn't take care of business, and that's why the discussion is what it is.
They did all they could do. I thought that I said they're when they got it down to like the last few seconds, I'm like, if they don't try to run this ball in and run some more time off the clock, the Jets will get the ball and anything could happen. That's what I said on the sideline. Somebody's like, oh, they're going to hold them. I'm like, no. You want to run the ball, run as much time off as possible to make every throw they have to throw have to be even bigger and more important. And I'll be like, take your time getting up. I don't went through the entire process. The way that they got up off the guys in between the plays, you make a big catch, great. Make sure he's got to scramble to get away from you after you tackle him. Wrestle with him for the ball on the ground. Eat up a couple more seconds. There are all these little things you do to try to eat up time. And they're going to look back at that and go like, 1 second is what basically lost in 1 second of the game because we got to overtime. But if they had just kept doing one more, two more things because they're in overtime, I'm like, if they go to overtime, the Giants have no chance. Somebody goes, how can you say that? I'm like, this poor kid, like, he's not going to be throwing the ball down the field. They're going to bring every guy up to hit Saquon as many times as possible. They're already picking out Robinson. They're like, 17's over here. Watch 17 when he comes in motion. Just watch him. They were screaming out the two guys that had the most success because nobody else could, they couldn't get the ball down the field. You're handicapped at that point.
Yeah. I was going to say momentum completely shifted in favor of the Jets at that point. And also you got to look at it from the standpoint of Howard, as we're talking about the offense. Well, how did the Giants manufacture up to that point? Okay, at the end of regulation, they're 10 points. The field goal came on a Zach Wilson strip sack where they had the ball essentially right in the red zone, okay, and they weren't able to punch it in. And then the lone touchdown came on the first drive of the second half, but it was aided by two Jets unnecessary roughness penalties that if the Jets avoid those penalties in this hypothetical world that we're talking about, maybe the Giants have to settle for a field goal attempt as opposed to Tommy DeVito having an opportunity to run it in. So I'm with you. Based on what it took for the Giants to put points on the board in this game, for you to all of a sudden expect you go to overtime, and now they're going to march down the field, 8 plays, 90-some-odd yards, and Tommy DeVito's going to throw the ball 5 to 6 times, is living in fairy tale land. So I would agree with you. It completely changed the dynamics of the game. As bad and as rough as the Jets' offense had been, you knew at least they had both facets, the run and the pass, to work with, whereas the Giants were only going to work with one dimension of their offense.
Well, the evidence was early in the game, the 50-yard little short dump-off pass, that a few missed tackles and it's a touchdown. So the evidence is there like, oh, no, we can't have any mistakes, right? So you're set, you're 7-3, and now we got to really, really lock in. We got to try to do everything we can to get to these guys, make sure no one can catch the ball. We got to rally to the ball. But the evidence is already there that anything could happen because that shouldn't have been a touchdown, but it was a touchdown. They one missed tackle, all of a sudden the guy's gone for a touchdown. So at the end of the game, if they, like I said, run as much time off the clock as you possibly can, give them no time. Like that 24 seconds could have been 20 seconds. That 24 seconds could have been 19 seconds if they would have, it could have been a touchdown because, in theory, Saquon went down. He didn't run as far as he could run.
Right. We haven't touched. You're right about that. I was kind of wondering about that myself.
Yeah, and I'm like, he could have went to the outside. They had student body left going, and everybody was blocked. And literally everybody was blocked, and he cut it back up inside. Okay, he cuts it back up inside. No one touches him. He's like running. He gets 6 yards, and he just like gets down, like run it all the way to the end zone or score. If he would have just ran it, 4 more yards and got a first down, game's over. It's just the way the dynamics of what, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know what they were thinking. I don't know, what's being said. Like a lot of times you'll see guys run close to the end zone, then they'll slide trying to run the clock out. But in my mind, I would have ran it as far as I could have. You had carried the ball the whole game, and I don't know if he's hurting, if he's sore, but he got down. He literally saw guys. He got down quick to protect himself. He said after the game, he goes, "I could have pushed for a few more yards." He pushes it down to instead of it being 2nd and 4, it'd have been 2nd and 1. It'd have been second and nothing. It could have been first down. He went down. That's a choice that he makes right in that point.
I thought, you know what, when you read and hear everything this morning, I thought that's the point that really nobody is making any argument over. And I agree. That to me was a head scratcher.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know why he did it.
You're right. I think, obviously Saquon thought he was doing the right thing, but listen, the guy, 36 carries, 128 yards, and those 128 yards, everybody knew he was getting the ball. What he did yesterday was magnificent. But on stopping short, it was like, what? Why? You know,
like we're on the side. I was on the side. I'm looking right down. I'm looking right down. He's like, there's an open lane. He's running. No one's touching him. He sees guys coming. Now, my theory was, somebody said, why do you think he did that? I said, well, last week when he got, in the crowd, he fumbled. Maybe he didn't want that to happen, so he was trying to get down so a bunch of guys wouldn't grab him and go for the ball. That's the only thing I could think of. Because if he would have kept running, he would have probably, the first guy would have tried to grab him, the second guy would have been on him, and then he would have got the first down, but would he have gone down or would they have gotten the ball out? So maybe he was going down to protect the ball or whatever, but he literally could have ran for a first down or longer.
Well, you're talking about when Daron Payne ripped the ball out of his hands the previous week against Washington. I'm sure, Saquon didn't address this aspect, but I'm sure also part of it he's thinking is they've got no timeouts. I go down, we'll still have the clock moving and so forth. That may have gone through his head. But what we're basically focusing on, and this is where I started our conversation, as good as Saquon played with respect to putting everything on his shoulders, as Russ mentioned, as good as the defense played, we're still talking about timing is everything in football. And when the game is on the line, whether it's an inch or an additional yard here, it's a stop on the opposite side of the ball. Those things, they add up, Howard, in the long run. That's what we're getting at.
I know, long run. But again, decisions are made. Like, guys are making personal decisions. I don't know. Like I said, if that's a personal decision that ends the game. It just is. I don't know what went through his mind. He addressed it after the game. He goes, I could have gone a few more yards before I gone down.
Yep.
He was addressing it and saying that, and I'm like, so he knows that he could have gone further, but I have no idea why he didn't go.
I want to bring back go ahead, Russ, if you want to.
No. I was going to say, guys, I'm sitting there yesterday and I'm saying to myself, this is a Murphy's Law season for the New York Football Giants. What can go wrong will go wrong. Trying to make some light of it, but listen, your quarterback goes down, your backup quarterback goes down. Waller, who's been brought in, I hope I'm wrong. If we see Waller before December, I'll be surprised. This is an injury that he's had in the past.
Sure. Yeah, he missed time even last season with respect to the Raiders.
Really, sure. I'm watching this and I'm saying what can go wrong will go wrong. An offensive line that's held together by crazy glue. It is what it is. What can go wrong has gone wrong for the Giants this season.
Well, if you want to put this game in perspective, guys, the best way to explain it is the Giants played more quarterbacks. The Jets played more centers because they were down to their third string center in the first half than the two teams combined for third down conversions. They were 0 for 18 in the first half combined. So we had more centers for the Jets and more Giants quarterbacks out there than actually moving the chains on third down in the first 30 minutes of play.
The Giants, the Jets were 2 for 15 for the game on third down conversions. The Giants were 2 for 19. Really?
Well,
when I say ugly, I'm talking ugly, bad ugly.
100%. And that goes back to, I want to just add to, you brought up the topic of Tommy DeVito and why a quarterback is utilized if maybe there's not full confidence. I would argue, Howard, that even if you brought in an established veteran when Daniel went down, and they have brought in some guys to try out here or there, I don't think there's enough time for that quarterback, regardless of how long he's been exposed to this system or been in the league, to still fully digest and run everything at your disposal on offense. I mean, even if you bring a quarterback in this week, because let's go down the hypothetical road. Tyrod, unfortunately, dealing with the rib injury. If Daniel's not ready to come back, they're going to have to bring somebody in to support Tommy DeVito or whatever it may be.
Sure.
To expect that quarterback in the blink of an eye to pick up this offense in the span of 6 to 7 days, I just think is unrealistic, because I've seen veteran quarterbacks get traded at the deadline, and it takes them sometimes a full month or more, and they're veterans, to really feel comfortable and immersed into the system. So I don't think enough of that is being discussed. It's not an excuse. This is just what we see trend-wise in the NFL, that even if you went down the road to bring in a more established veteran, still no guarantee your whole playbook is at your disposal with that new guy under center.
Yeah, but you don't need your whole playbook. The theory is that you bring a guy in, a guy that's a veteran that you can have confidence in. You give him 4 or 5 plays that he can actually work with. Right. And on the sideline, you're coaching him up again as he comes to the sideline. Guys, football is a great game and it looks so dynamic. And you think that everybody's doing something so different and everything. You're basically running the same plays over and over from different formations or emotions and stuff. If you can teach a guy, this is our terminology, this is what we're trying to do, and he has an armband on, he's looking at the plays, he's going to know. Like, okay, which ones can you remember? Which ones, what happens here? What happens here? And then it's just a matter of, if the defense on the other side can get to that guy enough to make him get off his rhythm. If they do have a game like they had this week where they were just moving it just enough, the running backs run the ball pretty well, the quarterback is just not making mistakes, he'll have completions. They're not going to play every game in a monsoon. So we know that. So that's one thing you can look forward to. The Raiders game is in Vegas anyway. The weather's going to be perfect. The everything will be perfect. So the Raiders are a decent team, but they're not world beaters on defense, right? So you bring a guy in, you have Saquon, which the entire defense has to respect Saquon. You start looking at your receivers. Okay, like this kid here can run fast. This kid can run fast. You have to throw it deep a couple times. Let's see what they got, and you can actually bring a guy in, and he can be manageable for 1 week.
Well, if you're bringing a guy in, Howard, I mean.
And I'm not advocating to go against DeVito. I'm just saying you could bring a guy in for the first week and he could make a difference.
But that's my question. To me, if let's assume Daniel's not playing this week, okay? Let's assume he doesn't get clearance and he's not playing, and they bring somebody in. To me, whether they bring somebody, well, not whether they will bring somebody in. To me, DeVito will still start the game. I would think.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Yeah, think back to the Rams and Baker Mayfield. He brought him in like on a Wednesday, and he started the game for the Rams that week and won. Right. So it when I'm telling you, if there's a veteran out there that they know that's out there available, the problem is he's probably on somebody's roster and they're going to have to trade or do something to get him.
Well, there could be a few free agents out there. There are right now some veterans, even some guys that were exposed to Brian Dable. I don't know if necessarily they have to go the route of trading, but keep in mind with the Baker situation.
Name 2. You know a lot of guys. Name 2.
Well, Matt Barkley's out there.
Matt Barkley, okay.
And Matt Barkley was exposed to this offense. So, I mean, there I think is a reasonable name who you don't have to go out and give up resources. But what I wanted to add was that Baker Mayfield situation. Keep in mind, the Rams were decimated by injuries. There really wasn't much flexibility and choice at that point for Sean McVay. And that game that you were hitting on was a Thursday night game against the Raiders, coincidentally. And now we're talking about the Giants playing the Raiders. I would just argue the dynamics were a little bit different, because I think what Russ is bringing up and what I'm indicating is you could prepare a veteran, Howard. I'm not disagreeing with you, but I think it's fair to say Tommy DeVito knows more about this offense than anybody else you're going to bring off the street. Yeah, regardless of your level of confidence, Howard, and Tommy DeVito, because he's been here the entire offseason. He's been exposed to what they've been running more so than any other guy on the street.
I appreciate it. If the guy is a developmental player, you want him to be a developmental player, you hope that he can play, and I'm not against Tommy DeVito at all. If there's a veteran out there that they have a little more confidence in and that knows anything about the offense, they think like, okay, we need a Band-Aid. The guy will come in off the street, they'll teach him some basic plays, and he'll be ready to play. DeVito might go out and be a world beater and play and could play and do very well. Or DeVito could be out there and be like he was in the game, and they can't even get him started on confidence throws. So your guys are asking him to be somebody that he isn't right now. And I know the circumstances were big for him because he's in his home state, in his
Right.
home stadium, playing against his two hometown teams. Playing with his two hometown teams. Everybody's there. All of his buddies are in the stands. It's a big deal for him. But it's a monsoon and everything's going crazy. We'll be away in Vegas. Everybody will be ready to go. If you bring a guy in, and this is how I'm looking at it, if you bring a guy in, somebody that you have confidence in, like they'll be looking at, today's Monday. They're looking at people now. Somebody's in the building probably as we speak, and they're talking to them.
Yep.
They're like, they hope Tyrod gets better. I hope Tyrod gets better really quickly. I hope Danny gets better real quickly. But they have somebody in the building right now. Now, the question is, who's going to want to come here and play behind that line? Not many people.
Well,
but if you're out on the street, okay, do I come
That's
in for
your
2
only
weeks?
opportunity.
Yeah,
It
if I
changes
come in,
things.
I'm going to come in and get beat up for a couple of weeks. And come in and get beat up for a couple of weeks for a paycheck. Yeah, so that's what you're looking at.
Paychecks will do that. Paychecks, as you know, Howard, will do that for people.
Man,
the almighty green, it does change things. What I also didn't think helped the Giants' cause, and I'm sure this influenced Brian Dable's philosophy, which I think you were alluding to, Howard, is think about it. Tyrod Taylor's getting first-team reps this week at practice. Daniel Jones, remember, Brian Dable admitted that he's been running the scout team, and normally the backup does that. That could have been a potential role for Tommy DeVito. So DeVito, we're talking about mental reps for the most part. This is not an excuse. It's just how much work did he get with personnel this week is my point.
I got you. The way practices run, the first team guy runs the first team reps. Then the second team guy goes in and gets some, shadow reps of those. He'll run a few plays. He doesn't run as many plays as a starter, but he runs plays.
But minuscule. We're talking a minute amount.
Yeah, but he's running plays. He's doing all the open throwing drills and stuff. He's doing all that. The scout team stuff, where Danny was doing, the scout team stuff isn't throws and stuff that you would think that they are. The scout team stuff is, we hold up a sheet. Here's the play. This is where everybody's standing. They circle the guy you're going to throw the ball to. That's scout team. Like, you drop back, fifth step, they're not going to throw it to that guy. Turn around, throw it to this guy. Turn around, throw it to this guy. That's what scout team is. Those aren't reps. Those are just you throwing the ball.
Well, you're preparing the defense. That's what you're doing as the scout team quarterback.
But when you're saying he would have had more reps throwing the ball, mental reps, if he's playing scout team, those aren't mental reps.
Well, I'm saying he would have been in the flow of practice a little bit more. That's my point.
The flow of practice is, and just so you'll understand this, the flow of practice is the starter is playing and doing this. You're standing behind the starter, right behind him, watching the play and who he throws it to. He comes back, and when he comes back and the coach is talking to him, he's talking to both of you. This is who you're supposed to go to. Did you not see the guy coming off the right side? The guy comes off the right side, and you're both acknowledging that. And then as the quarterback, they call the play and he walks up, the coach is telling him who to look for and what's going to happen. That's the role of the backup quarterback. He's getting, okay, now you're going to go in and you're going to run the first 3 plays of that series we just ran. Then you're going to have the same thing. Let's see how you react to it. They're giving you the same plays. They're teaching you. You don't get to run. If the starter's running 10 plays and you're running 3 plays or 4 plays, you're running probably the same 4 plays so you can see it. Or you're running 4 plays that were messed up that you don't get a chance to redo. And then you get to run the play doing it correctly, and the starter's watching you do it. That's how they run offensive plays for quarterbacks. If you go in and the guy gets, if there were 20 plays running in practice, that guy gets maybe 7 or 8. But he's in to get the plays because they don't do what they used to do when I played. When I played, if it wasn't done right, all right, start the drill over. They're under time restraint now, and they can't. So they have to have it organized where the starter's going to get as many reps so we can get him in. They have a thing counting how many steps he's doing and everything, and they get the backup in to run the plays. So they're trying to make sure they get through the entire game plan, and they both get a look at the game plan. They know exactly what they're expecting them to do. So it's not like he's not getting mental reps. It's not like he's not getting throws. He's basically running the plays behind the court. Some quarterbacks even drop back and do the same thing, and they turn with the quarterback and mirror his image, doing the same thing, so he knows what to do. And the coach comes right back to the middle. Hey, we're gonna run this play now. And if he's on the sideline and they're doing the calls through the helmet, he'll have the helmet on to listen to the call so he can do it. That's the only way you can get reps. You can't run simultaneous practices. It's not college. You don't have 100 players. You don't have all day to practice. They have a very minute time, and I do very minimal time, I should say, that they can practice. And when they're practicing, they have to be able to utilize and take advantage of every second of practice. And that's the only way to do it. So putting him in the run scout team, he would not learn or not get anything. So the guy that comes in, if it's DeVito or if it's another guy they bring in off the street, the guy off the street will be able to play by the end of the week.
Real quick, before we wrap up, I just want to get to special teams. I know we hit on it a little bit earlier. Well, no, just the fact that Bram Gano has been put under the microscope, given the fact that he missed 2 field goals for the first time, guys, since week 17 of 2016, where he was with the Panthers. So, I mean, just to put things in perspective, we're talking about a guy that, I mean, has essentially been automatic since he joined the Giants. So it was a very rare occurrence. But what I think you were hitting on, Howard, earlier is Will McDonald made a really strong play that's not getting enough notice. I'm talking about the Jets rookie defensive lineman, where he pulled a similar maneuver to what Dallas did, more towards the left side, where he jumped and he nearly got a piece of the football. I don't know whether or not.
Did he touch the center? Did he touch anybody? You think he cleared him?
I did not see him touch anybody. Just like in Dallas, the Dallas situation, there was no contact. And as long as there's no contact, if you can time your jump correctly, that's a legal move.
Yeah, so that's crazy to me. I think Gillen, he had a subpar day as well, and I don't want to beat on him or anything, but dude, you can see how their punter made such a big difference in the game.
Oh boy, I mean, he had 3 inside the 5.
Yeah,
like, there might have been 3 inside the 3 for crying out.
So sure. that was and I don't know what's going on with the special teams, and I really don't. I don't know how they're coaching it or whatever. When Gillen is punting the ball, there are guys running free at him constantly. They're doing the rugby style thing and everything else, and maybe that's why they're free. But there are going to be teams that are looking at it and said, okay, we'll just put a faster guy out there. If we put a faster guy out there, we're going to block his punt every time. And that's going to be one thing they're going to have to look at. The field goal thing, the reason why I didn't trust the field goal is because they got a field goal blocked in the first game of the season with all the starters in, and now they got, mismatch guys in. They're trying to figure it out. It's not a complicated thing that they do, but you have to be really locked into each other and trust each other to get it done. And a guy jumping over you means that you don't have enough sense to put your hand up to hit him. If one guy reaches up and touches him, that's an illegal play. So again, I understand, why you go for the points. And the first kick he missed, I think they kind of dribbled the ball a little bit, or it was a low snap. He stuttered, then he kicked. It's not an excuse, but they are so locked in the timing. If it doesn't happen right, then it goes crazy. And he comes and he literally he goes over to his snapper and he has a few words with him, like, dude, you got to get the ball back there on time. It can't be a low snap. And I've never seen a kicker yell at a snapper before, but he had a few choice words for him on the sideline. So, those are things that are happening. And he, like I said, he's hurt and he's got a little bit of a knee issue and everything. Without that being said, the snaps have to be perfect. The guy jumping over, you got the offensive line that's not together. That's scaring me. The punt team, there's so many guys running at the punter that it looks like he's going to get blocked every time. I'm like, that's scaring me. It's like somebody's going to start, like, the special teams got to be, they got to find a way to play as that's the entire team. It's all the backups and everything. You got to find a way to make good plays. That's your one chance to play. You got to find a way to make good plays.
Sure. And when you try to stay in games and you're playing a lot of close affairs, the field positioning adds up. And I think we've seen that over the last few weeks. So we'll leave the conversation at that, as this is the latest edition of the Giants Hangout. A tough loss for Big Blue as they fall to the Jets in overtime, 13-10, now 2-6 on the season. looking ahead to the Raiders on the road next Sunday. Lance Meadow, Russ Salzberg, Howard Cross with you. You can watch and listen to the latest edition of the Giants Hangout on Giants.com, the mobile app, and your favorite podcast platform.